What is this debate about?
This debate is about how a certain sector of the marketplace is rated, specifically structured product, and in particular private label mortgage-backed securities. So the difference, I think, the way to think about it is there are certain securities that have a single obligor behind them, like a corporate bond. There's one entity. There's other securities that have a group of obligors underneath them, structured products. So for a mortgage-backed security, for example, there might be 1,000 individual loans underneath that security. The problem is that the rating scale that's used for the single obligor security is also the rating scale that's used for the multiple obligor securities. But they're really two very different things. The reason that happened was because we had this rating scale in place for years and years, decades even, before these multiple obligor securities were ever conceived of. Then in the mid-'80s, when we started the creation of these kind of securities, they just said, well, let's apply that kind of a rating scale to these new securities. Well, what's the problem? What's wrong with doing that? Well, for a single obligor security, the way the rating works is it's a probability of default. So the higher the probability of default, the lower the rating. And default is defined as you're going to lose $1. Well, they use the same methodology for these multiple obligor securities, these structured products. So the probability of default, the ratings is all about whether you're going to lose $1, that is, whether you're going to collect 100 cents on the dollar. As soon as the rating agencies say, we don't think you're going to collect 100 cents on the dollar, you get these downgrades. Well, so what's wrong with that? Well, for a single obligor security, whenever there's defaults, that typically means there's going to be large losses. If some XYZ corporation doesn't make a payment, all of a sudden I might lose 60, 70, 80 cents on the dollar. For these multiple obligor securities, say 1,000 underlying loans, if 10 of them default, I may not collect 100 cents on the dollar, but I could easily collect 99 or 98 cents on the dollar. So the fundamental problem, I guess, to summarize is the rating is silent about the magnitude of loss. And magnitude of loss can be very different for single obligor versus these multiple obligor securities. So we need a solution that basically gives us more information about the magnitude of loss on these multiple obligor securities.
Hey, Rich, you testified in Congress regarding this issue over ratings for single obligor versus multiple obligor securities. Can you summarize for us in a few sentences?
Yeah, I think I can, and here's the key distinction. For a single obligor, the critical question is, will there be a default? Because if there is a default, it's catastrophic. You lose a lot of money. So the rating, and that was the original intentions of ratings, was to tell you how far you were from that probability of default. And a AAA meant you were a long ways away, AA a long ways away, but not quite as far away, all the way up to where B, you're right on the edge, and then CCC is you're more likely than not to see a default. For a multiple obligor security, the question is the question is not will there be a default? The question is, how many? Out of the 1,000 borrowers, how many are likely to default? And so for the single obligor, the letter grades make perfect sense. But for the multiple obligor, the letter grade makes no sense at all. It should be some percentage ratings versus a letter ratings. That's the essence of what I talked about.